sell them to you for a quarter. I might keep these for myself. Probably won't fit over my glasses, never mind. We've got some extras up here. This is our lost and found department. If you have lost something, come see us. A mission of the heart. I've invited Eddie to join me up here today as we look at Romans chapter 13 this morning for a few moments. And the question I think we need to begin with this morning is, if the Spirit of the living God was withdrawn from Devil Springs Baptist Church, what difference would it make? What would we be doing different, or what would we stop doing if the Spirit of the living God departed from us? Would we still look like we look now? Would we still act like we act now? Would we still be involved in what we're involved with now? Would we make any difference more than what we're making now? The church can be an organization, or the church can be an organism. An organization comes together and they plot and plan, and just like a business, and they set agendas and goals, and they set out to reach that agenda, reach those goals, and it can be successful. It can accomplish a lot of things. But an organism is a living thing. It is something that has its own life. It is something that responds to the things around it, as well it should. For instance, if you have something that's living in the desert, it's going to respond to that. It will adapt to that. It will find water somehow or another. And you'll find it chewing on a cactus, or burrowing down in the ground, or some shape, form, or fashion. It will adapt itself as a living organism to overcome the obstacles that it faces and continue the life that it's been given. And so the church can be an organization, or the church can be an organism. Of course, I don't have to explain to you what makes the difference in that. The difference in that is life. And the difference in that life is the life of Christ. He is the vine, we're the branches. Apart from Him, we can do nothing. He's not only died for us, but He has given Himself to us so that we could be the living organism that He's called us to be. So we can look at our situation around us so that we can adapt to it, but more than just adapt to it, so that we can show it what life really looks like. What life was meant to be before man's fall. So it is God who has come to us. He has sought us. He has redeemed us. He has given His life for us. He has implanted Himself in us. And now He calls us to this mission of the heart. He calls us to a new life. In Romans chapter 13 are just a couple of examples of that, I think, and the primary examples of it, and you see it right there, that there is this law of love that is imperative. Apart from that, we will accomplish nothing. The commandments: do not commit adultery, do not murder, do not steal, do not covet, and whatever other commandment, all are summed up by this: love your neighbor as yourself. I submit to you this morning, we will never love our neighbors until we love Christ. And some of you may just need to love yourself sometimes. We can be extremely hard on ourselves, and we can see all the wrong instead of the righteousness that Christ has placed in us. We're only righteous for one reason, and we are righteous because of the life of Christ in us, because of the law of love that He has shown us what it looks like, that He has given His life. Even while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Love does no wrong to a neighbor. Love, therefore, is the fulfillment of the law. We want to accomplish a lot of things here through this church. God wants to accomplish a lot of things through His entire church. But apart from falling in love with Jesus Christ, we will never accomplish anything that we need to accomplish. Now, we'll have a lot of activity. We can make some strides. We can have some inroads. On the surface, it can look like, everything is great. I mean, we've remodeled the building. We have paid off the debts. We have money in the bank. I mean, let's go out and brag about that. We could say, well, we're doing good. But we substitute the things that aren't really important, or the things that aren't as important as the main thing. This mission of love, this mission that God has given us to represent Christ Himself. We are God's representation on this earth. We are heavenly outposts, the Church of Jesus Christ on this earth. God has great expectation for us because He has given much to us. Those who have received much, including grace, are required. It is required much of them. We are an issues-oriented society. Would you agree with that? I mean, everybody has an issue today. Just watch the news, listen to tweets. Everybody has an issue. And we all get caught up in our issues. We have, in those issues, there are usually factors of fear. There's factors of how's this going to work out for me? There's factors of how can this be accomplished? What can I do about this? How will I be seen? There's a lot involved with our issues. Speaking of issues, you have probably noticed by now that something's missing up on top of the church. There used to be a steeple up there. But I have decided that we don't like steeples. We're not going to put up with steeples. We have thrown the steeple away, and we will never have a steeple again because I don't like steeples. That's why I had him on stage. Of course, that would be ridiculous. I don't have a problem with the steeple, except that steeple keeps costing us several $1,000s every time it starts to fall off the building. So we are now working to put another steeple up there, but instead of a 3-story steeple, and I assure you, hang on, that it will not diminish the life and love and mission of this church if the steeple is a little bit shorter than it was before. We will still have a steeple. We will probably even make it look more godly and put a cross on it or something. So we're going to have a beautiful new steeple, and we will rejoice in that. But it is an issue right now. There's a big gaping hole up there. It doesn't look good. I'm getting calls and texts. Something happened to your steeple. Oh, really? I hadn't noticed. We are addressing the steeple issue, and one will reappear, but it will not be 3 stories tall, and it will not be leaning anymore. We will stabilize it so we're not spending thousands of dollars to have a 30-foot steeple up there. I like steeples. Steeples are good. They point toward heaven. But that also brings us to, as we talk about we are issue-oriented, that what should be an issue that infects and affects our lives? Well, I think Romans here is just telling us the issue that we should be addressing is the law of love. I have such a desire for us. I have such an expectation for us. Listen, Double Springs is one of the best places. This is a paradise of churches. And believe me, I've worked with churches in my former ministry, 50 churches in our association, and I got to work with all those churches, and so I understand what nightmares look like, and I understand what paradise can look like. I want you to know, Double Springs, that this is paradise. We love each other, we care about each other, we give, we support, we encourage. I told Deb not to put anything about pastor appreciation in the bulletin or anything. I said, I don't need, I feel encouraged. We don't have to have a month of pastor appreciation. And you have encouraged us, even beyond that, pastor appreciation, those kind of things. By your care, by your concern, by your heart, by your life. That's what encourages me. So hear that. But this is not a cruise. This is a battleship. And we're called to war. And we're in a war. And God has, and we cannot lay our weapons of warfare down, our faith, our love, and all that we have, the peace and joy, and we cannot lay those things down and settle for just our little corner of paradise. There's so much more that God has for us, but there's so much more that we have to fight for. We have to believe in. We have to search for. We have to lean forward and understand that the race we're in, with everything in us, we're reaching for a finish line. We have a goal in mind. We understand there's a destination in front of us that God has called us to. We cannot just hold on. We can't just plant our feet. We can't be satisfied with whatever has been accomplished in the past. We just can't. That little boy that sat in my lap a while ago. Yeah, I'm talking to you. You know, there's so much at stake in this thing. And yet we see a culture and a country that has gone off the rail. What will bring it back? It is God's church and love with God. That's the only thing that's going to change it. We have got to completely, fully, and faithfully just fall in love with our God. And He becomes everything to us. Only then will we take up arms. Only then will we get back in the battle that He's called us to. Only then will we persevere in the lives that God has called us to. We are God's people, and He has called us to this law of love. Would you like to comment on it?
As I continue to travel, of course, when I came here, you've been such a blessing to me, and hopefully I've been a help to you. And I came here as interim for a couple of months to help you find somebody to do the worship, and I'm still hanging around, and I'm grateful for that. And it came at a great time for me because it helped me to not have to travel all the time for the time being and be here with my wife. And she helps her family and does this crazy work she does for them. So I'm deeply appreciative of that. But when you travel, though, what you see around the country and beyond, church and people are all kind of the same, no matter what regions they're in. no matter what their accents are, what kind of buildings they're in, what kind of music they use in worship. Now follow me with this because it's important. Today, the things that we're addressing, it's not about necessarily, well, I didn't know there were any problems. I didn't know there were any reasons for us to be concerned. There aren't. It's peaceful. It's wonderful. It's fabulous. We love being here. Who wants to leave? None of us. Keith always says, you know, he says this to me, he says, I still love putting my key in that door in this church every week. So we're in no hurry to go anywhere. In fact, you know, we still feel called to see God do something here He's never done before. But let me paint some pictures real briefly of what that looks like in my mind. I told him this morning, I said, you know, there's things that I miss, that I want to introduce to you. And sometimes when I get enthusiastic about that, about this time last year, you know, we talked about me becoming more involved even than I had been before. And we ended up splitting the difference because I think it frightened some of God's people because there was this, because of this enthusiasm and me suddenly being involved in a lot of things, there was maybe a fear that I was moving in to take over and take charge and to change things, and not that at all. Not even in the least. I'm here to help him. We figure out who we are, what we're doing, where we want to go, what we want to be, and I've spent my life doing that in churches all over the country. And when I say that I miss certain things, here's what I would love to see happen. Faith's not voting on what I'm saying. She's not leaving. She didn't leave in protest. Just want to clarify. You didn't leave in protest, did you? Okay, good. Okay. I've been in places, every church I've been a part of was growing like a weed. And this isn't just about growing church or making a big deal of us or, you know, look at us, look at what we did, look at what we accomplished, you know. It's not about all that. I'd be perfectly happy doing this the rest of my life with you folks and not worry about a thing. The problem is the Bible. The problem with that is, like I sang to you, we're called to a mission. We're commissioned to share the gospel. I promise you that if the Lord lets me live, and I believe He will, if I'm 80 years old and I've retired from certain aspects of life, I'm not going to ever retire from sharing what Jesus has done in revolutionizing my life. I want to encourage you all to do the same thing. A lot of you are retired. A lot of you are enjoying that. He said this is not a cruise ship, it's a battleship. You know, Billy Graham, he said, I'm going to die preaching and sharing the gospel of Jesus around the world. These places that I've been have been very evangelistic. And because of that, those churches grew like crazy, and they didn't grow like a lot of churches do today. A lot of churches grow today because the same group of people, flocks of people, decide what the flavor of the month is. Oh, look, they built a new gym, or they're doing this, or they're doing that, and everybody's excited, so they're the flavor of the month, so to speak, and everybody runs over there for a while. And every denomination, just about every denomination, does this. When you get into those medium to large churches, you know, it's like, you watch them, people just move around like crazy. And that's how church growth is experienced. Now, I want to tell you what we were doing, and again, I'm not bragging on me, we, all. I'm sharing with you what I miss. Because in those places, there was a lot of enthusiasm. Because there were people who were coming to Jesus, and their lives were being radically changed and altered now and forever. And it was amazing. It was fun. It was fun to watch people who just found this new faith and came alive, and they were raw around the edges, but there was vibrance. And you know, like if you ever been to Brooklyn Tabernacle in New York, you would see what I'm talking about. Here's a group of people, the Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir that everybody loves. And I'm telling you, it's 220 voices that would absolutely blow the roof off of this place. And they sing with passion. And the reason is because they were hopeless. Some of them were on the street. Some of them had been given up tossed away. They were in mental institutions. They were in prison. They fought for their lives. Their kids were riddled with drugs. Their marriages had dissipated. They were prostitutes. They were everything you can imagine. And suddenly Jesus changes their lives. And man, when they sing, it's like, wow,
Right.
there's passion in what these people are doing. And I could tell you that story over and over and over, all these places where I've been. There were churches we were baptizing 400 people a year. You know, and it was just like fabulous. We'd do it down at the, you know, we went from 400 people in the worship service on Sunday morning. 2 years later, we had 2,300 people. Now, that's not because we were rock stars or because we were playing rock and roll music or because we got new lights or because. People were getting born again. Our guys were going out in the community being salt and light. And I've seen that over and over and over. It takes spiritually mature people to do that. You know, it takes people who don't retire from that. It takes people, young people who aren't embarrassed or afraid or politically correct, so politically correct that they won't stand and share their faith. That's what I long for. I long for that enthusiasm. When God rescued me from my self-destruction and reinvented me and shot new life and revelation of His grace and His redemption and His restoration into my life, I became full color, more than I'd ever been before. But I promise you this, every day I have to make a decision that when I get up, I'm going to stay on track and on course. Because if you don't, we all have to do that. It's a daily decision. If we don't do that, then life can become satisfied, complacent, lukewarm. And I hate to tell you this, the Bible says that God would rather us be hot and cold. But lukewarm is a bad place to be. So, I don't want you to perform for us. I don't want you to pretend. I don't want you to want me to pretend. You know, I ask people, they ask me, will you come and lead worship at our church? And I go, well, on one condition, that you don't ask me to be somebody else. Because when I come, I'm coming full me. And I'm going to scare some people. But I don't care. Maybe they need to be frightened.
Scares me all the time.
There needs to be newfound enthusiasm for the relationship we have with God and the grace that He's bestowed on us, and really, not in a heavy way, but all we got to do is go out and have the joy of the Lord and the praise of God on our mouth and the joy of the Lord in our hearts and the passion of God in our lives, and people that crawl across glass to come find that. That's what people are looking for. And I hate to tell you, but if we're the church that we're supposed to be, we will grow. And if you're having an adverse reaction to seeing the church grow, you probably need to go spend some time down there in the prayer chapel. Because we're called to be agents of grace. We're called to be soldiers, warriors. We're called to be mouthpieces for God. We are God. We are Jesus. We are His word in this world. We are on a mission. We are at war. And you don't have any choice in that. But we can do it gladly and with great fervor. That's what He's called us to do. What is that?
It has a purpose.
And by the way, don't confuse. I backed off because I don't want to hurt him. It's like with my wife, I'm telling you more than I should, but it's a family business she's involved in and it's killing her. And she would rather be here today, but she's got 6 guys working on a mobile home park today. And I'm telling you, she'd much rather be here worshiping God than overseeing guys that are digging on a septic tank line and putting them in a drain field. You think my little wife wants to be doing that? She does it because of her dad. But I'm telling you, there are times that I sow. There's things that she has to put up with and has dealt with in the last 4 or 5 years that I want to step into so bad. But her words to me is, you got to just be patient. help me all you can, because if you interject yourself into it, it makes it harder on me. That's her words. So I have to watch her get beat up sometimes because she says she doesn't want me to intervene on her behalf. Well, here's the deal. In very similar ways, I'm here for him. I make no excuse for the sunglasses, but I'm here to help him. I'm here to help you, but I'm here first to help him lead this church into the 21st century. And if it's better for him to back off, for me to back off, I've done that because I don't want to create a sense of being a threat or people worried about me taking over or changing our denomination. This church is a Baptist church. We're now a Baptist church. We'll always be a Baptist church. We ain't changing that. We're rock solid on the fundamentals of what we believe. But don't ever misinterpret enthusiasm. If I get enthusiastic about us growing and reaching people and challenging us and doing new things, don't ever mistake that, please, as we bear our hearts this morning. Don't mistake or misconstrue enthusiasm for ego or an agenda. There's not. The only agenda I have is to serve God that's called me to serve here.
And Eddie's been a great part of my ministry here and a great encouragement. I thank the Lord for it. The next thing I would say to you is that we need to walk in the light. We need to live in the light. The world wears rose-colored glasses. That's why I was interested in these. You can't tell, but they're kind of a colored lens on these glasses. We're at a point that we need to take our rose-colored glasses off, and we need to take a hard look, not only at the world, but we take a hard look at ourselves. What is your desire for Double Springs Baptist Church? What do you want to see happen? Do you have any expectation besides the expectation you may have for him or for me or for the other staff? Do you have any expectations for yourself? Or are you satisfied with your life? Are you living the abundant life? Are you living the life that Christ has called you to? Are you following him? Are you getting up every day and you're thankful and you're rejoicing and because you realize that you've been rescued, that you have this incredible salvation, that you have this future home in heaven, or is that the only thing that satisfies you? There is a cost to following Christ. And the Bible says we take up our cross and we follow him. We lay aside the things of darkness and we live and we put on the armor of light. But even more than that, we put on the Lord Jesus Christ. It is getting up every day and we take off our garments and we put on him, his garment. His garment of praise we talk about, his garment of faith, his garment of love, his garment of dealing with a lost world, his desire, his garment of desire for everyone he's going to contact through me and through you each and every day of our lives. That's the church and that's the people that God's called us to be, and that's the expectation that we should have for each other. Not just for one or two, but we should have that expectation for each one of us and ourselves. I'm thankful we baptized, it seems like a small number, but for us we baptized 14 last year. There is no reason why we should not baptize 10 times that amount. But we will never get there apart from our lives being lived out for Christ out in this world that he's called us to. It is taking off our rose-colored glasses. It is taking a hard look not only at this world, but taking a look at ourselves. And being honest. Listen, even if you don't want to be honest with your pastor or some other member, be honest with yourself. Take a look at yourself and you're saying, okay, I'm good. I know that I am fulfilling this mission of love, this mission of life, the Christ life in me. I know that I am in touch with God. We have this intimate, wonderful relationship, and out of that relationship, I'm living my life. But more than that, I'm living his life instead of just my life. When that takes place, we will see Double Springs Baptist Church blossom. We will see and we will experience what God wants us to experience. We won't have to come in here and we won't be questioning, I get it. I like it at 72 degrees also. But if that's all we live for, if that's all we wake up about, if that's our issue all the time, it's just about, I want it the way I want it just right, I don't want any bumps in the road, I don't want any pitfalls. Well, that's called a deserted island, because it's not the world that we live in. But it's through all these things that Christ shows up. It is through those pitfalls that we call out to Him and cry out to Him. It is through the difficulties of this life that we are most assured of His presence in our lives. And it is only then, when we are desperate for Him, just like that Mormon tabernacle.
No, not them. Brooklyn Tabernacle.
They're desperate, but they're desperate for Christ. The Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir will become those kind of people that realize there's no hope for Christ, that He is our everything. You have that expectation for your staff. We have that expectation for every person I'm looking at here this morning, that you will love Jesus. You know, in essence, that's all I'm asking. I think that's all this book is asking. I think that's all that God's asking. If we will just love Jesus, and that's called revival. And when we fall in love with Jesus, it revives us. And then you don't have to tell me to do good. You don't have to tell me not to do something bad. I have a desire for the things that He has a desire for. I have His heart, His life. His priorities, His issues become my issues instead of my issues becoming His issues. And it makes all the difference in the world. So what are we asking you to do? We're asking you to pray. You know, we share the Word, we share our hearts, we share life together. But nothing will be accomplished in this church until we really get down, we really get honest with ourselves, and we begin to pray. And we begin to seek God with all of our hearts. There's so much lostness around us. There's so much darkness around us. And it's closing in. Until we become desperate for Christ, nothing will change. God's looking for somebody, somewhere, who will fall in love with Him and just follow Him. Hear His voice, experience His life, know His heart. That's all He's asking for. That's all He's looking for. Are we those people? Are we willing to be those people? What is the obstacle to that? It's just us. It's just our own heart's desire. Our own will, our own will. So that's why we've got to pray. God, I need your help. God, I'm not able to do this, but you are. God, I don't have a desire for this. God, I don't care about lostness. Unless you show up in my life, I need you to help me care about losses. God, I don't care if somebody's hungry. I don't care if somebody's wayward. I don't care if somebody's in prison. I don't care if somebody's thirsty. God, I'm being honest with you, God, unless you change my heart about that. God, I'm asking you to make me care about what you care about. That's the only prayer we need to be praying. That's the prayer that will change us. And it can change everything. You've got 30 seconds.
We don't ever want to use guilt, because I grew up in church that used guilt as a motivator. Not really bad. It was all about guiltiness into doing something. Nah. In fact, it's just the opposite. We live in a world of skepticism. Everybody, our culture is skeptical about everything because they've been burned so many times and they're tired of so much of the noise. But let me just say this to you. Some of you have seen, you know who Kanye West is. Some of you have seen some of the Facebook stuff and social media stuff about him. What has happened is Kanye, who was the rap guy that set new records and everything, as far as album sales and all that and influence, And, he married one of the Kardashians. I mean, it's just, he's the social media king. And he was the greatest ego that ever walked the earth and one of the most vile human beings you'd ever meet. He walked up in the middle of the Grammy Awards and interrupted Taylor Swift, I think it was, saying that he really deserved actually went up on stage and said he deserved the Grammy more than she did. That's who the guy was. Well, guess what? He's given his life to Jesus. And the other night on the Tonight Show, I watched this, I think it was Jimmy Fallon or one of the guys, I think it was Fallon, who said to Kanye West in an interview, so now you're putting Jesus in your music. And Kanye thinks for a minute and goes, no, it's not about doing Jesus music. It's about the fact that Jesus is now in everything in my life. And you can look at pictures of him and you listen to what he says. And I told Nancy the other day, looking at a photo of him, he looks different. I described him, he's become softer. There's a glow about him now. And we're surrounded by skeptics because there's a world full of people in the church who look at all that skeptically and go, well, we'll see, or that's not real, or he's just selling records, or, it's whatever else. Well, I was there when B.J. Thomas did that. I was there, I was close to that situation, and the church just about killed him physically. Just about wrecked him, and they did mess him up for a long, long, long time because it was nothing but skepticism. Listen, the world, Jesus doesn't need us to look down our religious, pious noses at people who are struggling. If you've I used to condemn people who tried to kill themselves. Once I tried to take my own life, the way I feel about those people and the way I reach out to them now is entirely different because I've been there. And the truth of the matter is, we've all been there, we've all done it, we all need grace, we all need forgiveness, we all need to repent, and without Jesus, we're eternally lost. But we live in a dark world who's been burned up and become cynical because of the things they've seen church people do, and they figure their lives aren't any better. Most of the time, they're worse than mine, so why should I want that? That's the culture we live in. You want to see it change? Allow Jesus to stick out all over you. Don't pretend. Get in the Word. Don't pretend. Pray. Don't pretend. Spend time with your Savior and your Lord, and it will radically change your life.
Would you stand, bow your heads, and close your eyes for a few moments? After the service, we'll be hanging around up here for you to talk about some decision or something God's working in your heart about. I will be glad to share that with you. Maybe God's speaking in your heart about being a part of this church. We'd like to talk with you before we present you to the church. We always do that, so we'd be glad to sit down here and have a conversation with you about whatever need or whatever thought or process you have going on. Just asking you this week as you get ready to depart, that you would be honest before God with yourself, that you would seek Him with all your heart this week, that you'd ask Him, God, where am I? Show me what's going on in my life. God, help me to see you in this. Help me to follow you. Help me to lay myself down and put on Christ. Father, we love you. We thank you. Help us to love you more. Help us to see you in everything, in every way in our lives, to allow you to be a part of every area of our lives. It's so easy to get in a rut. It's so easy to get in a routine of just going through the motions of just, well, I'm really okay, or we're not really okay. When we're living lives at arm's distance from you, when we're doing things in the dark, that we'd be afraid to be brought into the light. When we are just living our own lives, and just making it work somehow. You call us to so much more, to abundant life, to rivers of living water, to joy unspeakable. I pray that you'll work in our hearts to bring us to that place that we see you high and holy and lifted up, and we will respond to you with all of our lives. In Jesus' name I pray. God bless you one and all. Love you.